Hello, hello, hello. I said it different tonight. Hello, hello, hello. How are you? Hello, hello, hello. Good morning to you. You live in a shoe. How are you guys doing tonight? Or this morning, or this afternoon, or whenever you are watching this vlog. It is currently 9:06 p.m. and I'm tired. My eyes are tired, and I just filmed 2 drama videos, a Peterisms video, a review video, and I posted my vlog. So I put up 5 videos today, and I was gonna do like a booktube vlog, and I was just gonna drive around and talk for a little bit, but in all honesty, I just don't have it in me to do one more video today. So I'm gonna start back on booktube tomorrow with regular content over there regularly. I am charging my phone currently. So yeah, and everything is becoming unplugged over here. All my cords are unplugged. I have this little like hiding place where you put your cords, and I try to keep it like really nice and organized over there, but they're all coming out. So let's talk about my day. How has my day been? My day has been really good. So let me tell you what happened last night. If you watch my Peterisms video, you'll know this today, but after I got done vlogging last night, I hadn't like really listened to, I think I'd listened to like maybe 10 minutes, I don't even know how much of it, of The 4 Agreements, because that was the book that I picked for Peterisms this month, for the month of November. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, on my Peterisms channel, which is like stories of my life and meditations and things like that over there, and just things I've learned in my life and whatever. It's very much like things I would talk about with my like recovery friends, or reading meditations. That's pretty typical of what I do over there. But anyway, starting in November, I am picking a book every month, like a self-help book or a motivational book or an inspirational book to read every month going forward, because I just think that it will keep me focused on reading at least 1 a month, and then at the end of the year, that's 12 self-help books I've read, which, I mean, that can only help me as a person, right? Like, and help me to grow and improve, you know, and whatever, and so that it holds me accountable. But I also thought it would be interesting to, you know, have a discussion and have other people read or reread books over there, because some of them will probably be rereads for other people. And the December book, which I'm going to talk about in a second, is a reread for me. So anyway, last night, I went back and I restarted, because I didn't even remember starting it. So I restarted The 4 Agreements, and it's by Don Miguel Ruiz. I started listening to it. Well, first of all, I don't know who narrates it. I didn't even look, and I don't know if it's the writer or whatever, but it is, the audio version is so like peaceful to listen to. It is like just very meditative, and there's like little music from time to time that plays in it. One of my biggest pet peeves, first of all, is on audiobooks, like at the beginning when they play the music and the music goes into them starting to read the book. It's always very distracting to me. I don't love when there are music in audiobooks. And it started that way, but then they would play it like the music in between kind of like profound points. And so I really liked how they used the music in the audiobook. But anyway, I started listening to it, and you guys, I couldn't stop listening to it. I listened to all 2.5 hours last night. And I listened to it at 1.75 speed, and it was still pretty slow. I usually listen to books at 2 speed. And I rewound a lot of it. I was pulling over and taking notes on my phone. At one point, I just sat, you know, at the grocery store parking lot and just listened to it. And it just was profound. And if you don't know what it is, go over and watch my Peterisms video. I did like a 20-minute video, I think, talking about what I had taken from the book. But it was a lot of things that I already knew and believed to be true, but a lot of things were said in ways that I needed to hear them again, or they were said differently, and I just was so impacted by the book. I mean, I was so impacted by the book, and yeah, it was just in a really great way. And the book really talks about, you know, that for many of us, life is hell, and that we choose to suffer. And it's about changing your perspective of being happier on a daily basis, and how we choose to live our lives. And I don't know, it was just really powerful for me in a way that I didn't expect it to be. You know, I read a lot of self-help books, and sometimes they affect me, and sometimes they're just like, yeah, like I already know this, and I don't feel impacted by it at all. And so I kind of didn't really expect it, especially since it's such a short book. I think it's 138 pages or something. And it was partly in how it was written as well, because it's written in very simple terms, and it's written in like layman's terms. It's very easy to understand. It's not like this deep textbook, which often when I read self-help books that are very like textbook kind of language, I get lost in that. So anyway, I stayed up way too late last night listening to that, and I think then I got home and I'm watching season 1 of Dragula on YouTube, because the season 1 is on YouTube. So I listened to that, and then I went to bed way too late, like way too late. But I'm so thankful that I read that book. Like, I just was just so impacted by it. It really changed my perspective on a lot. Really, it changed my perspective mostly on how I choose to look at the world and live. Because it's really about bringing everything back to you, and how it isn't about other people. Like, there was this one of the agreements is, don't take anything personally. And so it talks in there about like when people say things about you or to you, positive or negative. You know, if somebody says something mean to you, you know, do you own that as your own? Do you start to believe that? Because some part of you believes that to be true already. And then if somebody says something good to you, it's the same thing, right? I didn't even see that Chicago's pizza place ever. You know, when somebody says something good to you, like how wonderful you are, or this or whatever, yes, that's nice, but do you like start to believe that because, you know, you want to hear that, or because it makes you feel good? When the reality is we should be feeling this because we want to feel it, or we believe it to be true. And it's about changing our own belief systems within ourselves. And at the end of it, he talks about how every single day you should tell yourself, you know, that you love yourself. It was weird because I was coming right here when this part was on it. I was coming the other direction. I don't know why, I just remembered that. But it talks about, like, you know, you should tell yourself every day that you love yourself. And I was like, I say that in my vlog every single day, you know? But do I really, like, I say it, and do I really believe it? Do I really say that to myself? And I do. I say that to myself. You know, I say I love you, you know, and I do positive affirmations on a daily basis. But there's a difference between saying it and really internalizing it and believing it. And the book was just so powerful to me because it was really about the internalization of positivity in our life and choosing to be happy. And, you know, I'm not really sure that a year ago, had I read this book, that it would have had the same impact on me. In fact, somebody commented and said that they tried it and they weren't at a place to read it right now. And I totally get that. You know, I totally understand that. A year ago, I didn't have the peace of mind, the serenity in my life, the clarity, the ownership and things of, or just the, I didn't have the mindset that I have today to listen to things and be like, okay, Peter, like, you know, at what point do you take back your own life? And it talked in there about our physical selves as well, and, you know, our body as being a gift, and things I really needed to hear, you know, things that I know. None of it was anything that I was just like, oh my God, I'd never heard that before. There were a couple things in there though I hadn't heard before, or I hadn't heard said the way that it was said. And one of the things that was so fantastic was it was talking about that we punish ourselves, or we punish other people over and over and over and over again for things that we've done or things that they've done. And, you know, that like animals don't do that, you know, but like we as human creatures, like we do that. Like, you know, you know, if somebody has grown, we'll say, well, no, you haven't. Don't you remember this? Don't you remember that? And we continue to punish people over and over and over again, instead of accepting them where they're at, you know? And we do that with ourselves as well. Like, we relive the pain in our heads over and over and over. And then he talks about forgiveness in there. And I thought this was so, like, it just blew me away when he was talking about forgiveness, because I talk a lot about forgiveness, you know? And my understanding of forgiveness from the whole Oprah thing is that forgiveness is accepting that things happened the way that they did. Not that it was okay, but accepting that what happened, happened. And now what are you going to do with it? Not that it was okay or not, but what are you going to do with it? And he talks in there about forgiveness is really for us, which I've always believed that to be true too. But I do believe that other people deserve forgiveness from us from time to time. Some people do. But he said in there that forgiveness is freedom for ourselves, that forgiveness is really about freeing ourselves from the suffering that we continue to live through because we're the ones that relive the anger and the resentment on a daily basis. And I was like, damn, like that is so true. You know, like when we refuse to forgive somebody or refuse to let them go, you know, or we are still emotionally attached to them, we continue to relive that pain over and over and over again. We're the ones that are putting ourselves through it. And he said in there, you know, we make ourselves suffer more than other people make us suffer at times, you know, and I believe that to be true as well. And he said that you will know that you have truly forgiven somebody when you see them and you have no emotional response to that. And I was like, oh, wow. Because I have a couple people like that in my life, and that is where I'm at today. Like, I literally have no emotional response to them whatsoever. And I'm just like, that is really powerful for me, you know, that like, I needed to hear that. Because I think that if somebody had asked me, have you forgiven so-and-so? I don't know that I would have been able to say yes or no. I didn't know, like, you know, I can say I've forgiven somebody, but what is the feeling, the internal feeling? And then it goes in and it talks about how to like deprogram ourselves from all these beliefs that we've had for so many years, you know? And he uses this one example of this girl that like she was singing and her mom told her that she had an ugly voice, so then she never sang again, she never talked. He just makes up this story, but I think it's a made up story, but that she never sang again, and she was shy at school, and when people would ask her to sing, she wouldn't sing because she thought she had an ugly voice. And that she, you know, like what if at 20 she started to sing like a little bit to herself? I think he said something like just to herself in the shower or something, like that would start to break that pattern and that agreement. Because the agreement is when you believe something to be true about yourself, then it's an agreement, right, that we make with ourselves. And so it's about breaking those beliefs, breaking that belief system that we have about ourselves. And I was thinking about that with my voice, you know, that for so long I have had so many, I mean, I still get it on my videos, but it doesn't have the impact that it used to have. And I was like, I wonder why that's changed. And, you know, the thing is that when I came onto YouTube, people would say stuff about my voice. Your voice is different. Your voice is girly. You sound like a woman. You sound like a, you know, a valley girl. You sound like a teenage girl, whatever. And it was hurtful to me because I can't change my voice. I mean, I could take voice lessons and I could do, I'm not doing that. I mean, like, that's ridiculous to me. I mean, if other people feel like they need to do that, that's their business. But for me, I'm not doing that. But it's hard to accept something that other people don't like about you, and in all reality, you don't like yourself. And I didn't like it about myself. I didn't like my voice because my voice was something that brought me a lot of pain, because people would criticize my voice. They always have, my whole life. My voice, my mannerisms, the way I walk, the way I use my hands, whatever. People criticize that stuff. And so it brings a lot of pain. It hurts, you know? And when people say those things, like, it reiterates the pain that I have inside of me. But that's changed in the last couple years to the point where, like, those comments really have very little effect on me anymore. I mean, I used to have people that would say, I mean, I think every once in a while I get a comment like this, but I would have people that would say on my videos, your voice causes my ears to have cancer. Like, you know, people would say some really harsh stuff about things. And the reality is, like, that it doesn't really have any power over me today because, number one, I don't believe that to be true, any of those kind of harsh statements about my voice. I think my voice is just unique and different to me, you know, and it is what it is, and it's my voice. And, you know, today I'm starting to love things about myself. I think in some ways, even, like, me accepting myself has been a detriment to me changing and getting healthy, because I kind of accept myself so much for how I am that then I'm like, I don't really care if I lose 50 pounds or not. I'd like to be thinner, because I think I'd be happier if I was thinner and I could fit into certain clothes because I'm uncomfortable, or I don't think I look cute in those clothes. But that's that belief system again, right? But in some ways, I've worked so hard on changing that and believing something different that I think it's almost kind of done a detriment to me to some degree, right? And he goes in there and he talks about our physical bodies are gifts that are given to us, you know, to use, and that we have to treat them correctly as well. And so I have to keep that in mind. I don't know, the book was just so powerful to me. I just, on so many different levels, I heard so many things I needed to hear, and I'm really, really happy that I read the book. But then I wanted to pick like a really powerful book to read for December, and I didn't really know, like, I was looking through, I had screenshotted, actually, when I was in the airport, like a bunch of books that I wanted to read that were self-help books. And I was looking through them, and I was like, I don't know which ones I really want to read, you know, blah, 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 whatever. And so I was looking through them, and then I was like, you know, I think I'm going to read the Celestine Prophecy. So here's the deal with the Celestine Prophecy. It's by James Redfield, and it's an adventure story. And it is, it's about this guy. I just remember he gets like this wake-up call in the middle of the night, and it's like somebody needs him to come, and I think it's to Colombia or somewhere. I can't remember. But anyway, and he's like trying to find them, and he's like, as he goes to the same places that his friend went, and he learns these, and it's about all these insights, right? There's like I think there's 9 insights, and then the next book is called The 10th Insight. And so he's learning all these insights as he goes. I remember this one that was about, like, when you are communicating with somebody, it's like standing over like a bonfire, and if you speak aggressively and with anger to them, it's like putting fuel on the fire, and if they do the same, and then it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, this bonfire, right? But like, if you don't add any fuel to the fire, like, the fire doesn't get any bigger, at least on your side, and it dies. I don't know, I remember that part of the book for some reason standing out to me. But I read this book. I had just started my classes back after I got out of treatment. I mean, this is literally like 3 or 4 days after I got out of treatment. And so I read the book, and the book had such a profound effect on me. I mean, such a profound effect on me. And at this point, I was going to, you know, 2 meetings a day, and I was, you know, really working on going to my aftercare group, going to my counselor, doing all this kind of stuff. And I remember I stayed up all night and I read this book. Like, I started it. It was probably a 2 cigarette pack book. I sat there and I made a fire in the fireplace, and I remember just drinking coffee and sitting there on my couch, and just like, I read this book straight through. And I had a friend of mine that I got sober with. She called me in treatment on New Year's Eve, and she was drunk. And I said to her, I said, you do realize I'm in treatment, don't you? And so her sobriety birthday is the 1st, and she's been sober ever since too. And she and I did like everything together in the first, you know, 6 months to a year of sobriety. And I remember calling her that morning when I read that book, and I said, like, I felt in my heart and my soul, this is why I really today believe in halfway houses and in independent living environments and things like that, recovery environments for people that are sober. And I was suggested that, and I didn't go, and I really wish I had. In retrospect, that's the one thing I wish I had done. I mean, there's a lot of things I wish I had done, but that's one thing that I really wish I would have done, is I wish I would have gone into like an assisted living program for people in recovery. Because I would have been surrounded by a lot of other people in recovery. And I know, listen, there's 20 halfway houses in Indianapolis. I know there's drug use there. I know there's all kinds of stuff that happens, but there's also a lot of good that comes out of some really good ones. You know, there's some really great halfway houses out there, and 3/4 houses and things like that. But anyway, I remember calling her, and I said, I had this wake up moment that I was like, I need to change, and I need to change now. And I mean, nothing about, like, I mean, I learned a lot when I was in treatment, and a lot of things like really, you know, made me think differently, and I realized that I need to change my life. You know, one of the things I learned in treatment was my counselor said to me, you need to change people, places, and things. Well, that was the one thing that I was unwilling to do all the other times I had tried to stay sober, was I was unwilling to change people, places, and things. And that is a recovery suggestion that people make. It's kind of a treatment statement, but that we suggest that people change people, places, and things. You change the people that you hung out with, using wise, the places you used to go, and the things that you used to do. You change all of that, right? And I was willing to go into sobriety. My counselor even had me call some of my friends and tell them that I couldn't continue to hang out with them. I went into sobriety pretty willing to, I mean, I was resistant to a lot of things, like have a boyfriend. That was one of the first things I did when I got out of treatment, was I got a boyfriend. Because I didn't love myself, and I felt like I know this now, but I didn't know this then. I didn't love myself, and I felt like I needed somebody to tell me that I was good enough. I don't feel that way today. I I feel blessed to share my life with somebody, but I also know that I don't need somebody to validate my existence and tell me that I'm okay, and tell me that I'm good enough. But at that time, I did not know that. And, but there were you know, obviously other things that I was resistant to. I mean, I fought a lot in early sobriety, especially with my sponsor. I'd question everything, and he'd just say, just do it, quit asking me why, you know. But one of the things I did do that time, because my counselor looked at me, because you've never been willing to do this, I changed my people, places, and things, because I would get out of whatever I was doing, and then I would be like hanging around people's apartments while they were like doing all kinds of stuff, and it was like, how can I possibly be sober in this environment? But I thought I could, and then there would always be some breaking point, you know. So I did do that, but I read this book, The Celestine Prophecy, and something changed for me. I don't know what it was. I'm getting like mass texted. Hold on a second, I'm gonna pull in here. Make sure it's not Alex needing something while I'm out. Because I'm actually right now uploading my review video. I reviewed Golden Girls Christmas gifts, and then I'm putting up my Peter Isms video, and they're both uploading right now. So I gotta go home, head home, and oh, it is Alex. Oh, my phone is not even charging because it's, hold on a second. Oh, he got picked for another. He loves doing, is my phone charging now? He loves doing the fashion stuff on Instagram, and he's starting to have like people reach out to him to like do Instagram posts and stuff, and he gets so excited, and I'm so happy for him. He has like put so much work into it, and it's something that he really, really loves. I'm so excited for him. Where am I at on time? 21:50. Okay, but anyway, so I don't even remember how I got the book or where it came from. I don't know. I think maybe somebody brought it to me in treatment. My mom might have brought it to me. I didn't see my mom when I was in treatment, but she would bring me things from time to time, like at the end. So maybe she did, because I do know that it was one of my mom's favorite books, but my mom read a lot of self-help books while she was still drinking. Some of her favorite books she read while she was drinking. So I don't know, it may have come from her, but I don't know how I found the book or how I read it. But I read it, and I read it in less than 24 hours. I remember sitting down and reading it, like, after a meeting. And I can see myself sitting there on the couch in, like, pajama pants and a t-shirt reading it. 22-year-old Peter, back then, in his pajama pants and dark hair. And anyway, I remember calling and talking to my friend, and I said, things need to change. And she's like, well, you're changing things. I said, no, like, things need to change. Like, I don't think I can be in school right now. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, I think that I need to focus on my sobriety. And she was like, well, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I don't know. Because my dad had said to me that, you know, my dad had been footing the bill while I had been out there using and saying I was in school when I hadn't been putting any effort into school. And he was pissed. I mean, he was really angry. And, you know, and that's why every year on my sobriety day, I call my dad and I thank him for my education, and I thank him for my sobriety, because I wouldn't be here, or my treatment, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those two things, you know? And so I didn't know how I was going to do it, because my dad said, he was like, you know, I really wanted to go into like a halfway house, but I was too scared to say that. And I know a lot of people are going to have problems with my story, but I don't care. It stopped. It was at the end. I know a lot of people are going to have issues with my story, and I don't really care. This is my story, and this is my truth, and I'm just going to tell it on here. So anyway, my dad had said, you know, like, if you aren't going to school, then you need to work full-time, and if you're working full-time, I'm not paying for your apartment, because the deal that he and my mom had made in the divorce contract said that he had to pay for my housing and my education. And it was in the divorce contract, and he was pissed because I had basically, you know, been using that just to party. And so anyway, he was just really done. My dad was really angry. I mean, for a very long time after I got out of treatment, there were no like pats on the back, like, I'm really proud of you. There was none of that for, I mean, probably years, honestly, the first couple years. Even when I would like travel and see my dad and stuff like that, I mean, there was a lot of damage that was done there from my use and whatever. So I scheduled a meeting with my dad at his office, and I went in there and I sat down and I said, I really feel like I need to, you know, I really need to focus on my sobriety and things like that. And I really want to just, you know, go to this and do this. And he's like, well, what are you wanting to do? And I said, well, I want to go to 2 meetings a day, and I don't know that I can. I think I was like registered for like 15 credit hours of classes, and I said I could take 1 class, but Dad, really, to be honest with you, like my heart and soul is not like in this right now. I don't even know that I want to go. I didn't even know if I wanted to go back into school, and so I said, I think it's a waste of your money, and I want to get your money back now. So I want to withdraw from my classes, because if you withdraw by a certain time, you get 100% of your money back. And I said I want to withdraw from the classes now, so that you can get your money back, and then I just want to focus on my sobriety. And so he was like, I remember he just was like, looked at me like, am I being scammed again? I think he thought he was, you know, I was totally scamming him again. And so he said, okay, this is what you need to do, and this is, you need to go to, you know, this many meetings, this blah, 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 whatever, and he put a time limit on it. And he said, if at that point, Peter, he said, you know, you either need to be back in school full time, because I'm putting a time limit on when you need to finish school. He said, or you need to have a job that's 40 hours a week, and I'm not paying your bills for you anymore, period. He was like, or you can work as much as you want, but I'm not paying your bills for you anymore. I'm done with it. And I said, okay. And I think it was by like July or August of that year, I think it was like by July, I think by August, like when the fall semester started, I had to be in school full time, or I had to be not living at the apartment. I had to be like paying my own bills and working full time. And I actually started working several months before that, because I ended up going to the treatment program that I had gone through and getting a job there. I started as a volunteer, and then I ended up getting a job there. So like my volunteer work kind of like went very quickly into me getting a job there. But that book was really what set the precedent on me, like everything changing for me. And I don't remember what it was about the book that did it. You know, I don't remember what about the book made me, I remember feeling free and liberated again. I remember for the first time in my life fighting for myself, fighting for me, fighting for who I was and who I wanted to be. And for the first time, like, I didn't care about going out. I didn't care about my friendships. I didn't care about, I'm not going to have fun anymore in my life. I didn't care about any of that kind of stuff. Like, I wanted to focus on me, sobriety, and getting better. And I mean, my counseling sessions, I took those extremely seriously. And I was going to a lot of meetings. I was going to all kinds of meetings. I was going to a lot of meetings. And I was really active in 3 different programs. I was active in Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and Cocaine Anonymous. And until my sponsor finally said, you need to pick a program and just kind of stick with it, because I think that would be better for you. And that's what I ended up doing per the recommendation of my sponsor. You don't have to do that. That's just what my sponsor told me. But I was in it, you know, like, and I read a ton, and I was really healthy, and I was working out, and I was sleeping healthily, and I just, for the very first time in my life, I was really, really taking care of myself. And, you know, I owe everything to my dad, for being willing to do that. And I know, trust me, I know that 99.9% of the people that are out there do not have the ability to do that, and that is a luxury, and I know that, and I am grateful for it. And, you know, it's never forgotten by me. And it's kind of funny, I will tell you, as my dad gets older, from time to time, like, he'll forget which day at the end of the month my birthday is, but he never forgets my sobriety birthday. He always knows my sobriety birth date, and he knows how many years it is too, like to the day. Like, I could call him right now, and I could be like, do you know how many years I am this year? And he would be like 25, like right off, he would know it, like right away. And so I'm thankful for that book, whatever it did to me, you know. I think like in that first month, I read like the Alcoholics Anonymous basic text, the Narcotics Anonymous basic text. I read Hope, Faith, and Courage, which is the stories that Cocaine Anonymous goes along with Cocaine Anonymous. They borrow the first 164 pages from Alcoholics Anonymous. I read the 12 and 12. I did the workbooks for AA and NA. I read every book out there that I thought that could help me. I read this book that was all the slogans, that was called Denial is Not a River in Egypt. I read, I read so many books back then. That's when I was doing the meditation books. Like, I was like sobriety 24/7, you know, except for when I was with my boyfriend. But that wasn't long lived anyway. He didn't last for a long time. So, I always think back on that time, you know, of year, because now to the 17th was just such a desolate time of year for me. It was such a dark and lonely and ugly time for me, you know. I don't really, in all honesty, remember a lot of the day in, day out. I just don't. I don't remember, like, things I did. I remember pretty clearly the last day that I used and drank. But I don't remember, like, the day in and the day out of what that looked like. I just don't. And, like, when I see my apartment in my head, it was very dirty. You know, there would just be dishes piled in the sink, or, like, trash bags in the kitchen floor, and clothes, you know, all over my bedroom floor. Cigarette burns, you know, empty bottles, empty cans sitting in my bedroom. It just was dirty. It was just, it was gross, and I didn't care. But I don't remember a lot of the day in and the day out. And there, you know, I was a blackout drinker, and I haven't talked about this for a while on here, but, like, my daily use towards the end was, I drank about 1.5 fifths of Jack Daniels a day. But I also drank about 3 to 4 40s. I loved Colt 45 and Old E because they would get me buzzed and they were cheap. And I just, in all honesty, I liked the taste of malt liquor. But I would also just always have a case of beer. And if it was there, I drank it. And I smoked a lot of weed, tons of weed. All day long I smoked weed, to the point where I was almost like smoking myself like sober, like, you know, I was stone sober, or whatever they say. I was eating pills, Vicodin, a lot of Vicodin throughout the day. And I was smoking crack, and I was also snorting powder cocaine. And that was the last 6 months, was that, looked like that. And I can't believe I'm here, you know. My drug screen when I went into treatment tested positive across the board, so I don't even know what else I took, you know. I mean, it literally tested tick for everything, so I don't even know what else I took or was taking that I just remember that. And I remember my stepmom begging me to go in, you know, and she was crying, and I was like, I can stop. I don't remember this, but I can remember, like, the attitude of thinking I can stop whenever I want. And I blew up like a 0.37, I think is what I blew when I went into treatment. And they told me I should have been dead, because that was like so many hours after I had quit drinking. Detox was hell. Absolute hell. The detox from alcohol is some of the worst detox in the entire world. And I can't speak to the detox of opioids because I haven't gone through it. But I know it's pretty horrible as well. You get, like, extremely dope sick, which is, you know, the book that we just read for November. It's not, you know, necessarily about that, but and then cocaine, you supposedly don't really go through that harsh of withdrawals. I just physically, first of all, I felt like I was hit by a semi. You know, it's weird because it's been so long, and I don't remember certain things, but there are specific things I do remember, like calling my dad on, like, so I woke up in treatment, and I remember calling my dad on this payphone, and I was so pissed at him. And he had told me that he had called all my friends, and he had called my mom, and he told them not to take my calls because I would try to, you know, like, get them to come and get me out of treatment, whatever. And I, like, cussed him out, and I was, like, slamming the phone. And I remember this woman that I used to work with, she's passed on since, and she was probably 4'10", 4'11", and I remember I was like standing there and I was like banging on this phone, and I was like, you mother, you know, and I like banging on the phone, I was like, you know, I took the phone, and I was like banging it on the payphone thing. I was mad, I was so pissed, nobody was gonna tell me no, I knew what I needed, I knew what was best for me. And I remember I was like in the middle of banging it, and these double doors just went, like, it was right outside the detox unit. There was like this sitting area, and the payphone was right outside the detox unit, so you had to go there to make phone calls, and it was like locked. And I remember all of a sudden it just went boom like that, and she was just like standing there. I ended up working with her later, and we had like this great relationship. But I remember the double doors just went boom, and there she was just standing there, and I was like this with the phone, and she's like, is there a problem? I can't remember what she said, but she was like, is there a problem? And I was like, no. And I started to hang up the phone, and she goes, I didn't think so. Now get back to your room. Or something like that. I just was like, you know, I really thought I was something. I really thought I was something, you know. That experience humbles the shit out of you. It really, really does. And I'm thankful for it. I'm so thankful for it. Not only because it saved my life, you know, I remember, so this is embarrassing, but it is what it is. I actually just saw her like a year ago. So my childhood neighbor that I grew up next to, her daughter was one of my best friends growing up. I didn't even know she worked this treatment center, and she was my detox nurse. I woke up, okay? Now imagine waking up in treatment, completely I had no real memories of even coming in. I mean, I had like vague memories, but I had no memories of putting myself in. You have to sign yourself in. I didn't remember signing myself in or any of that kind of stuff. I didn't realize till like years later that I could have just walked out the door, that it wasn't I mean, it was a locked facility, but I could have just said, I want to sign myself out, and they would have had to have let me sign myself out. The problem was, it was during one of the worst winter storms we've ever had, and there were snowdrifts right outside my window, and no cars going on the road, and nobody was coming to see me. I knew that. And I told all my friends on Christmas. By then, I just was like, I told my friends on Christmas, I said, I don't want anybody to come visit me, and my family didn't come visit me. And my mom was moving out of her house, but I walked out to the station, and my childhood neighbor was standing there. I think I may have known she worked at like a treatment hospital. I don't know. But anyway, so I looked at her, and I was like, I think I said something like, I need to go home. I looked at her and I said, I need to go home. And my hand was like on the counter, and she took my hand and she put her hand over it, and she said, she said something about my vitals, because she had taken my vitals, and she said, you're really sick, Peter. She said, you need to be here. You're really, really sick. And she handed me like, I'd come in with all these packs of cigarettes. I knew I was going to treatment or something, so I went to the Kroger, and I had like 20 or 40 bucks in my pockets, and I just loaded my pockets up with cigarettes, so I came into treatment with all these cigarettes. But then I ran out. My friend had to bring them to me in the snowstorm. But she handed me my cigarettes, a pack of my cigarettes with lighter or something, and she said, go down to the lounge and get a cup of coffee. And I did, and I remember when I walked by this mirror, I actually wrote I wrote a blog entry essay about this called The Pretty Drinker, because that was something that I had always called my mom. That my mom was this pretty drinker, right? Because, you know, she would do her hair and she would do her makeup, and, you know, what little makeup she wore, and she would look so pretty and so glamorous, and she would drink, you know, a martini and smoke a cigarette or a glass of wine, and I wanted that. Like, I wanted that world. That world was intriguing to me. It was interesting to me. It was endearing to me. You know, like, I wanted that. You know, I wanted to be an adult like that. And I always referred to my mom as the pretty drinker, you know, until she wasn't. And so I titled this essay, The Pretty Drinker, and I can remember I was like walking by, and they had like this floor-to-ceiling mirror. And I turned it, I looked at myself, And I looked bad. I looked really, really bad. And I had some like bruises on my face because I put my car in this ditch and drove it through the side of skimmed the side of this building and took out some of the stuff into the kitchen and a Perkins restaurant. And my hair was messed up. I just looked bad. And I had on these hospital pants and these footies and this long robe, hospital robe. I just looked so bad, And I remember thinking to myself, you got everything you wanted. You wanted this, You wanted to be the pretty drinker. Be careful what you ask for. I've often thought in my life, like, if that night had never occurred or never happened the way that it did, like, would I be dead today? When I went to lunch around my birthday with my dad and we were talking about it, I asked him, he said, oh, you would most certainly be dead. And he didn't even question it for 2 seconds. He was like, oh yeah, you would be dead. I was like, you really think so? Oh yeah, absolutely. Where am I at on time? It's pretty scary, And it's never missed on me what a gift my sobriety is, and all the people that, made it possible. And the doctor who was my doctor at the time, he's one of the leading addictionologists in the country. I think he's retired now. I worked with him for 13 years, but he saved my life. And I can remember sitting in his office, several times during that stay. But the first time I remember sitting in there was like 2 days. The first time that I remember sitting in with him was like 2 or 3 days after I got in there. And he was going over my vitals, my drug screen and stuff. And he was like, you've done a lot of damage to your body. And it was nothing that was, not irreparable, or it was, repairable. But he was, I used to see 25-year-olds and 30-year-olds come in there that had holes in their stomach, like people that had been drinking till they were in their 70s, I used to see people that came in there at 25 that were literally yellow and jaundiced from drinking. It doesn't have anything to do with our age. Like, we can really do some serious damage to our body. And then I also remember towards the end, I had a family session with my dad, and he just... I wanted out of treatment, and so I had to have somebody come and do a family session with me. And the family session, we would sit in this big family group, and then somebody would sit in the middle. Like, the patient would sit in the middle, and they would look at their family member, and then the family member was allowed to say whatever they wanted to say, and the patient wasn't allowed to speak. And my dad's office was right next door, and so he came over, and he was like in a suit and a tie, and my dad always was suit and tie, even when he had to like rescue me out of any situation, suit and tie, and he sat down in front of me, and I remember looking at him, and just like one tear like came down his cheek, and he said, he looked at me and he goes, you're pissing your life away and you don't even realize it. And he stood up and he said, you wanted a family session to get out of treatment, there you go, there's your family session. And he walked out the door. He was so pissed, and rightfully so. My dad had been put into situations to do things that he would never have done, and to this day, I can tell you today, would never. And then like towards the end of me getting out, he wouldn't even come and pick me up from treatment. He was like, you find your own way out of here. I'm not picking you up. And so my friend picked me up, thank God, because I didn't really have any idea I was gonna get home or anything, you know. And I remember I had to go and sign this, like, oh, I didn't have to sign it. So we went over this contract, this behavior contract, which of course, you know, I had like 50 of them in my life. They meant nothing to me. I remember years later, somebody said something to me. We were talking about behavior contracts that we had or whatever, and he said something like, those contracts don't have any more power than the paper that they're written on. And I mean, I remember thinking that's so true, except for my dad and my doctor wrote up this contract, and I literally did everything on this contract. I did everything on the contract. And the contract was like, I had to go to aftercare like twice a week or once a week. I can't remember. I think it started at twice a week and then I went to once a week or something. And I had to go to counseling. I was going to counseling like 2 to 3 times a week. I had to go to a meeting every single day. I had to have a sponsor. My dad had to be able to talk to my sponsor. I had to be able to give a drug screen whenever they asked, no questions asked. I mean, it was this very extensive contract. And I said to my dad, I said, where do I sign it? And he goes, you don't sign it. And I said, what do you mean I don't sign it? He goes, you don't sign it. If you violate it, leave your keys on the counter and get the hell out of the apartment and leave. You're done. I'm done with you. Because I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. So you don't need to sign the contract. If you break the contract, you know, I'm done. There's no helping you anymore. I'm done. And he was done. And I remember when I got home, and I've told this on here not too long ago. I've got like a half a minute, so it's going to stop in a second. But I got home, and my dad had the apartment professionally cleaned, and you know, he had got put all these groceries in the refrigerator, and just different kinds of juices and sodas and things to drink, you know, and like all this, like, just, it was a lot of like healthy food and lunch meat and bread, and you know, and I remember like I actually don't know that I've shared this one thing because it's really painful for me when I talk about it. But like, he got me like a coffee maker and stuff. Like a new coffee maker, and he just did like, I don't know, he like had my coat professionally cleaned before that, and you know, he had like new sheets put on my bed. Okay, he had done like all these really nice things, you know. And I remember like, maybe I've talked about this, I don't know, but like when I was a little kid, I would go over and, you know, I would spend like Wednesdays and every other weekend with my dad or whatever, and we would go to the grocery store, and he would let me like pick out like whatever kind of cookies that I wanted, and I would always pick out these. They were not like mint Oreos. They were specifically called cricket cookies, or I think they were called grasshopper cookies. And they were like Oreos, but they had like green mint in the middle of them, and I like was obsessed with these, right? And I remember like I had this little pantry thing to the side that was like, you know, those doors you like open like that. And I remember opening those doors, and like next to the macaroni and cheese and everything were like a package of those cookies. And I just thought like how painful that would have been for my dad, you know, to like, he never thought his kid would turn out to be this, you know, like this disaster. And how painful that must have been, like him standing in the grocery store thinking, oh, Peter really liked these, you know, like when he was a kid. And, you know, I don't think anybody's parent, like, thinks that they're going to turn into that, you know, like foul-mouthed, cussing them out, disrespectful, almost dead drug addict. I don't think, like, anybody, no parent thinks that their kid's going to turn into that, you know? And my dad, like, you know, later, because my dad was such an enabler to me, he was like, and he would own it, like he would tell you, like, I'm Peter's biggest enabler. He would say it at the time, and in retrospect he would say it, which is why he doesn't do it today, and he hasn't for 25 years plus. But he would say, you know, like, I enabled the hell out of you because I was afraid for you. Like, I didn't know what would happen. I was afraid. So therefore, to combat my own fear, I enabled you, you know? And okay, I had to pull in here to change the battery. I really didn't expect to get all emotional and sad tonight. I guess it does make me sad, you know, and I'm just going to end this. I'm going to kind of tie this up and then end this. I guess it does make me sad when I think about all of the pain that I put my dad and my mom and my family through, my stepmom, you know. But in reality, like, whenever I brake, my car is making a noise. I'm hoping that there's not something wrong with my brakes. But in reality, I don't think I'd have the relationship that I have with my dad and my stepmom today if it wasn't for all of that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think, had my mom and I got sober, well, definitely with my mom and I know that we wouldn't have had the relationship that we had because we spoke the language of recovery, you know? But I don't think that my dad and I specifically, I don't think that we would have the relationship that we have today if all of that hadn't occurred. It makes me sad that that had to occur for us to have the relationship that we have. But I trust the journey, you know, and I think so much of what I have in this world is as a result of my sobriety, that my relationship with my father is a result of my sobriety as well. I don't really know what our relationship would look like if I hadn't gotten sober, you know, or but not if I hadn't gotten sober, but if I had never used or had that to begin with. You know, I don't know what our relationship would look like. I have no idea, because so much of my life at that time, 12 going forward to 22, you know, was about that. So much was affected by that. So his trust and his feelings about that, and, you know, whatever. I don't know, like, what that would be like if we just were normal and I don't know what normal is, first of all, but, you know, if I had just gone to college and then, like, got a job, and you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea what that would have looked like. So, but I don't know what that would have been like with anybody. I've often thought to myself, what would have been like if I had stayed sober and my mom had never gotten sober? You know, if she had continued to drink and use, would I have not had any relationship with her? Because at first I said, you know, I can't have a relationship with you. She was one of those people, places, and things. We specifically talked about her, my counselor and I, when I was in treatment. I was like, my mom too. She was like, your mom too, you know? And she was specifically one of those people, places, and things. And so, even though I wasn't drinking with my mom drunk really pissed me off to a point that I would use it as an excuse to go use and drink. Because I'd be like, screw her, I'm gonna get drunk, whatever, right? So it wasn't healthy for me to be around that. And, you know, like, I look at all of that in retrospect and I think to myself, well, what would my relationship with my mom have been like had she not gotten sober? You know, and that to me is like a God thing, you know, that happened. And so all of these relationships were repaired, which I was told that would be the case, you know, that, you know, relationships would be repaired if I stayed sober and things would change and miracles would occur. And that has been the case, you know. And not in those specific words, but, you know, I don't really have any clue what my life would look like today had I not gotten sober. And so, you know, I think when people ask me and they say things like, and it's, you know, it's so today, it has really nothing to do with the hand to mouth or the drinking or the drugging, because it's just not about that for me today. I'm not going to say that I don't ever think to myself a drink would be nice, or, hey, you know, it'd be fun to go to Colorado and try an edible, because that stuff, it does cross through my mind, right? But I don't play it all the way through to fruition, obviously, because my sobriety is so much more important to me, and that's why I have to continue to go to meetings. For me, this is just for me. Whatever other people do is on them, but that's why I continue to have to go to meetings for me, and I have to continue to work with my sponsor, and I have to continue to read the texts, and that's why I have to continue to put into practice the things that I learn, and to do inventory and all of those things, and to do service work, because if I'm doing all of those things and I'm staying in the middle of sobriety, and if it's hard to fall off the wagon when you're sitting in the middle of it. And if that's something that I heard when I, you know, came back in. And so for me, I want to be in the middle of it. For me, I want all of the rewards and the promises to come true. For me, I want a life of happiness. And so I have to do those things. And I don't want to lose that, and that's why I continue to do those things. And, you know, at 25 years, hopefully at 50, if I'm still around, you know, like, God, can you imagine? What will I be at 50? It's 47 to 57, 56 to 67. I'll be what is that? 72? I am so horrible at math, you guys. Like, that is no joke when I say that in my videos. I really am horrible at math. But, you know, like, I really hope, you know, that I'm around at 72 collecting, you know, a 50-year token. I really do, you know? But if I'm not, I hope that I stay sober as long as I'm here. But all I have today is, you know, a daily reprieve. And I have to remember that, and I have to remember that the gifts that I'm given, and be grateful for what I have today, and, you know, be so thankful for my husband and my family and my best friends and things like that. You know, it's just, they're all gifts. And I hold on to them dearly. So it's weird when I look back over my life and the things that have happened and the way that they've happened and the order that they've happened in, you know, and that it's almost kind of like, and I used to talk about this a lot in my Peterism's videos, but I don't talk about it a lot anymore, but I do believe in this, that there's kind of like, I say blue string because, you know, everybody thinks the red string is for Kabbalah or whatever, or that is for Kabbalism, but anyway, I always feel like there's like this blue string, right, that's kind of like attached to these life events that happen, and one leads to the next, leads to the next, you know, and we're introduced to different people that will teach us lessons, and, you know, they're there for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, and that, you know, people and events that happen to us play great importance in our life if we pay attention to them and we don't, you know, miss out on the fact that it happened and that it's important. So yeah, I have a good life. I have a great life. And I'm very, very thankful for it. You know, whenever I talk about my dad, I always get emotional, and I think it's because, like, my dad and I have a really good relationship, but we very rarely talk about this emotional stuff. Like, we don't really talk about, I'll be like, hey, Dad, what's going on? You know, whatever. But, like, we don't talk about this. Like, we don't get real, I mean, we get deep about issues, but we don't get deep about the past, really. Like, we just don't. And, I mean, he would if I wanted to, but we just don't. Like, we just don't really go there. I mean, we've had, you know, other deep conversations. I'm talking about my mom or whatever, but, like, as far as, like, you know, like, at my birthday, that was like the first time that we've really, we don't ignore it, but we don't talk about it on a regular basis, if that makes sense. So that was the first time, was my birthday, that we had actually talked about things, you know, and how they were in the past. And it wasn't even a long conversation then. But I think I get real emotional because, you know, like, there was a point with my dad where I really, if you're a person that is actively using drugs or alcohol, or you're a person in sobriety, you'll know what I mean by this. There was a point sober that I really didn't think that relationship would ever be repaired. Like, I really didn't think that I would. I thought my dad just saw me as something he had to deal with, and he was tired of it. I think that I felt like I had built this brick wall in between us that was so high that it was never coming down. And so for us to have the relationship that we have today, oh my God, is this battery dying too? What in hell's bells? For us to have the relationship that we have today is just, for me, it's very cool, and I'm very thankful for it. So I do get emotional because I think, you know, like, if it wasn't for my sobriety, you know, I wouldn't have the relationship with him today. And I love him, you know? So anyway, if you didn't read the 4 agreements, go check it out. And I'm going to get off here now. I'm going to end my vlog early. Oh my God, it's 10:07. Anyway, I hope you guys are having an amazing Tuesday, unless you have other plans. But like I always say, do not have other plans. Make the most of your Tuesday. What is it, December 3rd? And do something today that will make you happy. Do something today that you will be proud of in retrospect. You're exchanging a day of your life for it. Life is not a dress rehearsal. And if nobody else told you this today, I love you. Make sure that you look at yourself in the mirror every single day, like I was saying earlier, and do your positive affirmations and say, I love you. You are important. You are beautiful. You are worthy, you matter, and your life matters, and you deserve all the best. And if nobody else told you this today, like I just said, oh my God, I'm saying it again, I love you again. And most importantly, make sure that you pass them to somebody else and let them know how important they are to you and how much they impact you. I really appreciate you guys watching my vlogs every single day. It means so much to me. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, love ya.